Hey guys, this is Benjamin Plays again with Raid Shadow Legends with update highlights from 3.2 coming this Thursday, the 14th, people. Really excited. A lot of the things that have been really populating over the last couple days have been a couple champions. There's going to be a fragment summon coming here really soon. Really kind of some cool stuff. But from what we've noticed and from what has been transparent to us, we didn't think that we were getting the daily logins, a perfect extension to that. I was hoping to see maybe the extension of maybe some artifact enhancement and all that stuff, but unfortunately that's not happening. So, unfortunately that won't be coming, but at least seeing the extension for daily logins is kind of something cool to see, and maybe perhaps in this some quality of life improvements might be involved with it. But without further ado, let's talk about these champions. So, first things first, new champions. King Garog, Garog, Force Champion Legendary, attack based, pretty decent kit overall. Attacks one enemy 2 times, having a 35% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. The chance increases to 50% if the target's turn meter is equal to or below 50%. So that's really interesting. Right off the bat, adding a stun to the game. I wouldn't sit there and say that that's not something that's already in the game, because there is. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I thought there is already a stun A1, probably an epic or something that I'm just forgetting. But anyways, yeah. So nothing too crazy. No chance increase with the damage. For books, quite a lot of books. Like, I mean, a lot of books. As a free-to-play player, I can honestly say he looks like he's going to be a tough one to fill out. It's going to be really tough to identify who's gonna be able to do this, minus like a whale or someone that's willing to spend money on this game. His A2, really interesting. Attacks one enemy 4 times. Each critical has a 50% chance of decreasing the cooldown of Gore Maker. So potentially your Gore Maker is going to be up at all times. But what is Gore Maker? Well, Gore Maker is an AoE that hits for 20 that will ignore 20% of each target's defense. Will ignore a further 5% defense for each debuff on the target. So here's what I'm thinking, and this is just me outlandishly thinking of a couple things. Faction Wars right off the bat, fantastic champion. On top of that, he's going to be a good boss champion, assuming his multipliers are pretty strong, because he's going to be able to do a considerable amount of things and ignore defense. So hopefully his multipliers are pretty good. As a legendary, you'd expect them to be pretty good, but you never know. And then finally, he has a passive increasing this champion's speed by 6 and crit damage by 7% for each enemy this champion kills in a round. Spider, immediately thinking Spider. Or maybe just a revive wave that keeps bringing champions up. Whenever stacks up to 30 speed and 35% crit damage, which will reset after he dies. So pretty good. Not surprised that it would reset, but pretty interesting. And when an enemy champion is revived, fills the turn meter by 30% for each revived enemy, then places an attack increase buff and a 30% crit damage buff on this champion for 1 turn. Pretty interesting here. I can see this being an arena move and an arena ability that really can help, because Gorgorab is notorious for having everyone die and then he revives everybody back. So that's a 90% turn meter increase. So if he's above 10%, he's gonna go right again. And whether he hits, whether his A3 is on cooldown, or it's about to be, is gonna be really interesting. So you could see a pretty significant change in the meta for that. I could see arena really being his go-to place, but I could see him being helpful everywhere. Next one is Roxum. Roxum. Legendary magic affinity attack-based lizardmen. More books. Woohoo! What is that? 4, 9, 15, 14 books. Golly, I have like 7 or 8 legendary books myself, and I'm free to play, and I'm just saving up as much as I can. Roxum's pretty interesting, though. Attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of filling this champion's turn meter by 10%. Also has a 50% chance of placing Perfect Veil, buff on this champion for 1 turn if this attack is critical. Interesting. Perfect Gale's a really good ability. I think I could be wrong with this, but I believe it's one of the better buffs in regards to reducing damage. Um, I'm not quite sure exactly. I don't have many Perfect Veil champions to really play around with yet. Like I said, I'm free to play, so it's tougher to do that. But from what I've heard, really good buff. So that could be interesting, especially with like ally attack, or like a counter attack or whatnot. His A2 attacks one enemy, fills the champion's turn meter by 50%, has a 75% chance of placing a stun debuff on the target for one turn when attacking while under a veil or perfect veil. Has a 75% chance of placing sleep debuff on the target for one turn when attacking without a veil or a perfect veil. Places a perfect veil on this champion for two turns after attacking without a veil or a perfect veil. So interesting. So you attack with your A1, automatically have it on there, or if you want to do the sleep debuff, you could easily do that on your A2. Basically, it's covering himself, so he's really more of an individual champion. I'd be curious to see what his statistics are to really kind of see what he can do. Then his A3, while under veil or perfect veil. Okay, so there you go. So you have chroma shift that you hit, and then you want to go into your A2 or your A3, more than likely your A3, where you attack all enemies, having a 75% chance of placing a increased defense and a weakened debuff. Decreases the cooldown of jungle ambush by 2 turns. While not under perfect veil, attacking one enemy has a 75% chance. Okay, so same thing basically. Increased defense and 25% weaken on the target for 2 turns before attacking. Places a perfect veil buff on this champion for 2 turns after attacking. And then, oh, okay, so cool. He has a nice passive. Places a block debuffs and a 25% strengthen debuff on this champion for 1 turn, and has a 15% continuous heal buff for 2 turns whenever they receive a veil or perfect veil, and then increasing crit rate within the Doom Tower by 23%. That is really interesting. I'm really curious how this is going to work. Um, he just seemed like it at first glance. Even though he's an attack-based champion, I could see this guy doing some work. He kind of feels like an upgrade from what's her face? Oh, the mouse that just got put into the game. I'm blanking on her name right now. Um, but anyways, so let's get to the fragment summons. Iron Barago. Legendary Spirit Affinity defensive orc. I like defense. I said it in my last video. I'm a huge fan of the defensive um, characters within this game. It just makes things so much easier, and I wish I had started working on this sooner when it comes to this stuff. But very good direction to go when it comes to champion building. Um, Even if the champions are awful. Attacks one enemy, has a 20% chance of decreasing the duration of all buffs by one turn. So that's kind of interesting. You can book that up to 30% chance. I'm assuming they mean all enemies. That'd be kind of weird if it was a decreasing all your buffs on your own enemy or on your own team by one turn. Uh, his A2 places a 60% increased debuff or buff on all allies for 3 turns, then attacks one enemy. I wonder if it drops the defense by 1 as well. Has a 75% chance of placing a stun for 1 turn, has a 75% chance of placing a stun debuff for 2 turns instead if the target's under 2 or more debuffs. So that's kind of interesting. I don't think there's not many champions that drop a 2-turn stun. I do believe that Tyrell does if you completely decrease an opponent's turn meter and there's only a percentage. So I think that's the highest percentage currently in the game of someone being able to do that with 2-turn stun. And that is something that I utilize pretty regularly because it allows me to just take out one of the harder hitting um, opponents within like a wave or even an arena. Very interesting and it's a very helpful thing to have. So that's really cool. And then attacks all enemies has a 50% chance of placing provoke debuff for 1 turn. Okay, I kind of like that. Up to 75% chance when booked. And the same thing for the Fearless Change on the A2. That actually goes up to 100% with books. But like I said, these champions just seem like they're massive in regards to the book category. Um, has a 50% chance of placing a provoke debuff for 1 turn. Also places a 50% decreased attack debuff on all enemies for 2 turns if Iron Barrage goes under increased defense. So you hit the A2 and then immediately go into Battlestorm. That's going to allow you to sit there and have a decreased attack on all enemies. That is awesome. I love that ability. I mean, take out the books aspect of it. I like this champion. On top of that, I also like Spirit because I don't have a lot of Spirit Affinity champions. So I more than likely will go for this guy because also would be nice to have an Orc that can do pretty serious damage. And then he has a passive increase in the defense of allies by 10% of this champion's max defense um, for all allies. Like that's awesome too. So you basically make your champions tankier, they can hit harder, and then finally the aura increasing ally defense in Doom Tower Battle by 34%. That's also fantastic. Pretty darn great champion. Melga Steel Girdle. These names are just so outrageous. Epic Champion, Spirit Affinity, HP type, Dwarves faction. Okay, I'm excited about this. Inspiring Violence. Ooh, that's a little rough. Wow, look at all the books on the A1. Holy mackerel. You have how many? Oh my gosh, you have 8 books on the A1, and then wow, okay, sorry. I got distracted there. Attacks one enemy has a 50% chance of removing a random debuff from an ally. Okay, that's kind of cool. I'm liking it so far. I don't like how many books they're putting into this game. If they gave us a better chance to receive books, maybe that's something that they're working on here. That would be great, but I don't like that. It's just they're making it harder and harder for free to play. All right, A2 places a shield buff on all allies of 20% of this champion's max HP. Great ability. Don't care how the rest of it even works out because whenever you have a shield on all allies that's equal to the champion that you're working with, depending on where her stats are at, the max HP of this champion is super helpful because you can make this like 60 to 70,000 HP, and then 20% of that is just going to be an outrageous shield. That would probably be really helpful to kind of do as a thing. And then on top of that, you also have continuous heal buff on allies for 2 turns, down to a 3-turn cooldown. That's amazing. I really like that. Really helpful. And then finally, basic revives 2 random allies with 20% HP and 20% turn meter, where you drop cooldown by 2. Ascended revives 2 random allies and then also places a shield, same thing as before, but also places a shield buff on the revived allies equal to 30% of their max HP. Really handy ability. Really nice. You're adding a revive into the dwarves faction. That I think is incredibly important. I don't believe they have a revival champion in the game currently, so that is awesome to see, and it's achievable. You can get this champion, so I'm really excited to see that. I feel like I actually have a chance to finish dwarves. I know a lot of people are going to appreciate this because this is going to be a helpful thing. Chancellor Yasmin, epic champion, force affinity, support champion, and going into Banner Lords. Okay. Respectable amount of books. I don't think there's too many. It's not too bad. Kind of even throughout. Basic attack, and then you ascend it, and you can get an extra hit if the target has no active buffs. So extra hits on that. That's kind of cool. Heals an ally by 40% of their max HP. Heals by 6% if the ally is at 50% HP or less. I really like that. And that's on a 2-turn cooldown. That is interesting. I like that. That's good. That's going to be helpful in the Banner Lords. And then A3 has a 50% chance of removing all buffs from all enemies, then placing a sleep debuff for 1 turn on all enemies who have active buffs. That's cool. That's cool. I do like that. It doesn't really stand out. Again, I don't have the statistics or the multipliers behind these guys, but really interesting. Vogoth, Undead Hordes. Whoo, hey, only one so far. That's pretty good. Epic Spirit Champion HP. A1 with a 3-hitter. Each hit has a 30% chance of increase in duration of a random debuff on the target for 1 turn. Thank you. There's another debuff extender in the game. I love it. It's not perfect just because the extra hitting is going to be kind of interesting, but this is a clan boss guy. I don't even care how the rest of this guy works out. This could be a really, really helpful clan boss champion for me. I'm gonna really like this. A2 attacks all enemies. Has a 60% chance of placing a provoke debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. Also has a 60% chance of placing 50% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns on all enemies. On all enemies who receive the provoke. Okay, that's really handy on a 3-turn cooldown. Again, a lot of books. A lot of books. That's a little frustrating, but it's still okay. It's still not too bad. Whenever this champion is attacked, heals all allies by 50% of the damage received. What? What? Only heals by 25% of the damage received from boss attacks. Oh. I jumped the gun. This champion only receives half of the health that all the other allies. So that's a 12.5% increase. Oh man. Okay, I don't mind that. That's a passive. It's going to happen every turn. So 25% damage, that is just going to heal the champions that you're receiving, and it's going to make things just easier. I really like this. Okay, I'm going to say this right now only because I don't know. He has 2 passives. Oh, I'm excited to get to the rest of this. I'm going to say this right now. This champion is probably going to replace my Bulwark. I have a really strong feeling that Volgoth is going to increase. I foresee this guy being incredibly helpful for me. And then on top of that, whenever attack places a leech debuff on the attacker for 2 turns, if the attacker is under provoke, it also has a 70% chance of increasing the cooldown of random skill on the attacker by 2 turns. Occurs once per attack. So you can get up to a 100% chance of doing this. He's not the clan boss won't ever be under provoke necessarily, which is whatever. But the leech is really important. So you have a guy that can do leech. You have a guy that has decreased attack. So I already have Tyrell, so I'm not too concerned about that. And I have Martyr that also has decreased attack. But that adds a 3rd champion that can keep decreased attack up so that I can just survive longer. I'll be curious to see, because here's the only problem that I have. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to adjust my team, because this will be a little weird, but I do think that having a counterattack champion on a 3-turn hitter, especially if you increase that A1, is amazing. I don't even want the passive to have the increase. Like, I don't even care about that passive, and I don't care about the A2. I really just want it on the A1, because if you have a 40% chance, you're going to more than likely increase a couple of them. Maybe I'm getting a little too excited about this, but I think having a champion that has leech, debuff extension, and decrease attack with relatively good stats, assuming that they're good, will be incredibly useful. Damn. Okay, I'm really excited now. I'm really, really excited. Ooh, Armina. Armina, an epic champion, magic affinity, attack barbarian. Attacks and has 30% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. Attacks all enemies, and then has a 70% chance of placing decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. Steals 75% chance meter. Steals 7.5% of turn meter from targets under decreased defense. Okay, so I don't know if I like this, because we already have War Maiden. Like, why can't you put this in another faction that needs it? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. You have a 100% chance on an AoE for decreased defense, like, and it's the 60%. Like, unless they're going to like nerf War Maiden, which Lord have mercy if they do that, but golly, I don't understand that. That doesn't really make sense. Decrease the turn meter of all enemies by 20%. Has a 75% chance of placing stun debuff for 1 turn on enemies. They love the stun in this patch. 30% Fills the turn meter by 10% each time an enemy receives a stun. Okay, so this champion can hit pretty hard. Like it's basically it's a slightly better version of War Maiden. That's what I'm getting. She just hits really hard. You have a 3-turn cooldown on this. It's going to be quite interesting to see how this champion does against, like, when it comes to like statistics. But yeah, pretty good champion overall. I'm excited to see that. Ursula the Mourner, epic champion. Void Affinity, okay, so first Void support for Banner Lords. Oh, she looks kind of cool. She looks very interesting. Attacks one enemy has a 40% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 10%. I like it. I like that. I like the turn meter manipulating. That's pretty cool. Attacks all enemies has a 75% chance of placing a decreased attack debuff for 2 turns. Also, it places an increased attack debuff on allies for 2 turns. Huh. Okay, I like that. That's adding a little bit more to what other champions do. Kaden. I think Kaden's the other one that has the decrease AoE attack. I'm sure there's other champions. That's just the one that's popping up into my head. Again, with the books, though, guys, like, holy mackerel. Just a ton into here, and then 1. What the heck? Revives all allies with 75% HP, then fills the turn meter. Yeah, this literally feels like Kaden, but with, like, a little extra oomph behind it. And then you add strength and increased defense debuff. Yeah, 6-turn cooldown, so I get it, but dang. Anax. Rarity, epic, spirit, affinity, attack, undead hordes. 2-hitter. Each hit has a 30% chance of placing a decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. Okay, that's kind of cool. Each hit has a 75% chance of placing or decreased attack debuff and a 5% poison debuff for 3 turns. This is a very underutilized debuff in the game, but decreased attack or accuracy, is really important. It's one of those debuffs that can keep the clan boss from dropping debuffs on you. The stun is one of those things. The poisons, reducing speed decrease, attack down, defense down, all of those debuffs, and it's going to help you potentially not have to deal with as many issues in the game. So I think this could be helpful. This might be their way of trying to get more needed champions with that, just so that there's a little more utility with that. Could be interesting. We'll see what ends up happening. Let's see the rest of it, though. Tax one enemy has a 75% chance of placing a 25% weaken debuff for 2 turns. Heals this champion by 50% of the damage inflicted. Okay, I mean, good champion, single hitter all throughout, really like solid champion. Lots of books, same thing. Passive, placing an increased defense on this champion whenever their HP drops below 75%, and then also increases attack on this champion for 2 turns when HP drops below 50%. I'd be curious to see if both populate. And then active effect grants an extra turn when champion's HP drops below 10%. Well, with the 5-turn cooldown. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Whatever. Another Barbarian, Attack Spirit Epic Champion. Has a 40% chance of placing decreased defense again. Okay, cool. HP burn on the A2 with 2 poison debuff for 2 turns. Okay, that could be interesting. We'll see where the stats end up. Still quite a decent amount of books, not too bad, but still a little bit on the high side. Places a 30% increased crit rate and a 30% crit damage buff on all allies except this champion for 3 turns, and then all allies except the champion will attack 1 target enemy. Oh, beat down. So this is like an ally attack, but with like, okay, I really like this. Okay, so this smells of clan boss. This reeks of clan boss, because you can get this down to a 4-turn cooldown, and this could actually be pretty intense. I could see this being really, really cool. And then finally, deflects 20% of all incoming damage to this champion back I'm sorry, deflects 20% of all incoming damage this champion receives onto all allies. The damage will be spread equally across all allies. Ugh. I don't like that. Not too much of a fan of it. I get it because it helps him survive longer, so I get it, but that's interesting. So maybe if you have like ally protection and like decrease up, that could be helpful. But I don't know. The HP burn and two poisons are kind of interesting too. I could see that could be very interesting. Like I don't know. He's definitely a secondary poisoner, but very interesting. I could see him replacing my bulwark. Okay, Duik the Pierced. Epic Champion Magic Affinity Defense. Okay, love that. And then Orcs. Attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 30% chance of placing decreased accuracy debuff for 2 turns. That's cool. Up to 40%. Attacks all enemies and having a 75% chance of placing a decreased attack for 2 turns. Also has a 75% chance of placing the decreased down big version debuff for 2 turns on each critical hit. Okay, so build him out for defense and crit chance, and he is going to produce quite a bit. Having that on a AOE is pretty nice. I could see him like again. This is all subject to their statistics, but this could be really interesting. It's nice to see what they're really trying to do with this game. And then finally places a provoke debuff for 1 turn on target enemy. Also has a 75% chance of placing a provoke debuff for 1 turn on 2 random allies or enemies. Excuse me. Places a 30% reflect damage buff on this champion for 2 turns and unkillable on on 2 turns or 1 turn for the unkillable portion of it on a 4 turn cooldown. That's cool. And then faction crypts by 31% increase. Okay, that's cool. I like it. Very helpful. Obviously, faction wars, great champion. I could also see him doing pretty well in clan boss and multitude of areas. And I think okay, so we got a couple more. Sanguina, epic magic support. The Sacred Order, 3-hitter on the A1. Each hit has a 20% to decrease the duration of 2 random buffs on the target. Cool. That's nice. Places a block debuff on all allies for 1 turn and a 15% heal on all allies on a 3-turn cooldown. Okay, pretty solid. Attacks one enemy, 75% chance of transferring all debuffs from his champion to the target. Removes all debuffs from all allies except this champion. Huh. So if you have a poison on there and you just send her back, that could be pretty interesting for clan boss or really anything. Doom Tower as well. Pretty interesting. Old Hermit Org. Ooh. Interesting. Only 3 attacks. Weird. Epic magic support for orcs. 30% chance of placing HP burn for 2 turns, up to 40%. Places attack increase on all allies for 2 turns and fills their 2 meter by 20% on a 3-turn cooldown. Revives 2 random allies with 60% HP and then fills their 2 meter by 40 and places a perfect veil on them for 2 turns on a 5-turn cooldown. Cool. Solid. I'd say faction wars for sure. And then Yugo. Epic magic support. Organ tribes. Ooh, okay. Got some organ tribes here. I actually just realized how good my organ tribes team was this morning. Attacks one enemy has a 30% chance of placing a leech debuff for 1 turn. The chance increases by 5% for each alive enemy. So 40% chance if you do the clan boss. A2 attacks all enemies. Decreased defense. 50% chance of playing block buffs. Chance of placing block buffs, debuffs increased by 5% for each alive enemy. Okay, nothing too great there. Removes all heal reduction debuffs from all allies, then removes 1 random debuff from all allies, then heals all champions with 200% of this max HP. Okay, weird. If all allies are dead, revives them with 50% HP and then fills their team meter by 50% instead. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Revival for organ tribes, definitely helpful there. And then there's a passive placing increased speed and a block damage buff on this champion for 1 turn whenever this champion's last living ally is killed. Oh, okay. So just a little extra survival right at the end here. Here comes the juicy stuff, and this is pretty much the end of it. So hopefully we can hear. Oh, I already see what I'm excited about. Okay. Ally login rewards expansion. This will be the last addition to the daily login rewards, but fear not, it doesn't mean you'll no longer get anything. Instead, the final tier will reset and repeat after you've claimed the final reward. You won't lose You won't lose access to the previous tiers either. All daily login rewards available until now still remain. The final tier is merely added at the very end, much like we've done in the past. Cool. Okay. Um, Still not sure about what that means and what's going to actually come out of it, but I'm really excited to see that. I'm actually past the 270 mark. I just got Visix probably about 3-4 days ago, so kind of excited to see where all that stuff goes and kind of the direction that everything goes when it comes to that. Hopefully, it gives a little more shards, more books, more resources for us to do better. If you've been playing this game long enough, they should be really kind of rewarding us for playing as much as we have. So, Polarium, hopefully you listen to everyone out here. And then miscellaneous, I'm really excited for this. More slots for your Champions collection and artifact storage. Champion collection will go from 200 to 300 slots, and artifact storage will go from 700 to 1,000 slots. Clan boss battles will always start in manual mode rather than in auto battle. Okay, um, so obviously storage is really awesome. That's obviously going to still eat through silver. So I would guess that we're still going to have to upgrade it, but at least we have the chance to upgrade them to higher amounts. So that's really cool. And then the artifact storage, I'm really excited for in the next couple days to see that, because I have tons and tons and tons of stuff to sit there and accept. And then I'm hopefully going to be able to have some more reflex stuff, more relentless gear. It's going to be really great. And I know it's a really long video, so I'm going to try to hold this up here. And then really quick, that little touch on the clan boss thing, I think it's really handy just because for me right now, between Brutal and Nightmare, the speeds that I have for Brutal are perfect, where they go first before the clan boss even hits, so I can auto that every single time. But on the Nightmare clan boss, the speeds aren't just up to par yet. I have to work on those, and so so whenever it goes on auto, I want to make sure that I'm doing certain moves in the first couple moves of the clan boss, so that I'm lining up my poisons with Frozen Banshee to be able to dish out enough damage. Anyways, guys, I know this is a long video. Thanks again for watching. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and comment below. Let me know what I'm doing if you want to see more content like this and more information that would be helpful. This has been Benjamin Plays, and thank you so much for watching.